Let's talk about Mr. and Mrs. Megxit for a minute, and Andrew's assertion in the book that actually it was more of a Harry orchestration, the move away. Yeah, a hexit. No one's ever said that, have they?
No, well, that's interesting, isn't it? And it goes back to the trope that Rebecca pointed to, where it's always the woman's fault, the incomer's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfair and unnecessary. There were tensions. What family doesn't have tensions? Imagine having baked into your sibling rivalry your big brother being king ultimately one day, something you can do nothing about, rock solid primogenitor staring you in the face. It's an uncomfortable one to walk around, and Harry in the end threw the cards in the air.
I mean, while I don't think that Kate needs to sort of compete with Meghan, I think what we have seen this week is really how their sort of lives are diverging and how Meghan always thought that. I mean, when she's in New York, she's very much looked like a politician sort of on the make.
She's clearly so comfortable on that American stage.
I mean, they've been fettered by the politicians and that type of thing, and you saw with her various outfits throughout the week, it was real sort of power look. There've been lots of comparisons with the Obamas, and that's definitely the route that she wanted to go down. And despite, you know, some of the reports from the time, I think that certainly perhaps she always wanted. How long did Meghan really want to be with us in this country?
What do you think about the claims in Andrew Morton's book that you know, refute some of the things that she's criticised the royal family about?
Well, I think it's very interesting, and you know, particularly it shows you how people can look at the same sort of events from two very different perspectives. And I think the royal family did make extraordinary efforts. I mean, you know, Andrew Morton mentions touching gestures like Camilla taking her hand at a public event to show you're really one of the family now. And I think more and more I've started to believe, and I've heard it from so many people, that they felt that Meghan didn't want it to be a success in this country in the royal family. She really didn't.
But again, you're flipping it round on Meghan. Let's focus on the hexit and Meghan being the enabler for what actually Harry has wanted for a very long time. She made him realise it was possible. Hey, you can have these trappings, you can have the entitled attention you've always grown up with, because let's be honest, that would be difficult to get rid of. And we can facilitate it in a different part of the world, away from the emotional baggage that came with a very challenging childhood. Do we need to, like, guddle about and say this is really so terrible? It's a lifestyle choice, and she, as his future wife and then wife, helped him make that choice. But
wouldn't it have been wonderful if Meghan had directed him to use their roles productively as part of the royal family? I mean, imagine, you know, this type of event, the Bond premiere in the past, you know, you'd have Harry with Kate and William, and imagine if it was that sort of Fab Four on the red carpet. It would have been fantastic for the future of the royal family. But unfortunately, I think she directed him in a very negative way, in a way that was for herself rather than for the royal family. The crux of
it is who directed who, isn't it?
Yeah, and also it's what you believe in. You think it's negative because you're a keen royalist. You know, you're a great believer in this British institution, as am I, kind of in a slightly, perhaps less passionate and obvious way, Richard. But Meghan, she comes from America, man. She bought into the trappings, but why should she buy into the institution? And Harry, clearly, in his play for her hand in marriage, wasn't overselling that institutional line, was he? He was saying, get me out of here. I want to be a celebrity, but forget the royal bit.
Let me ask you, Tessa, Prince William, do you buy these bullying claims?
I've got a big brother. Sometimes he just stands up and I feel bullied. You know, he's taller than me.
But hasn't bullying as a word, it's just become virtually meaningless. You know, children will accuse their parents of bullying if they're asked to do the washing up. You know, I mean, this idea that, you know, William was bullying, I mean, maybe he was just asserting the fact that he is the future king and he would get priority. I mean, that's just a fact.
He has inbuilt privilege that they were never going to have. And you talk about, oh, wouldn't it have been great if the Fab Four had been on the carpet? Yeah, but Meghan was always going to be the sidestep to Kate. Kate would have worn gold. What would Meghan have worn? Silver. You know, it was never going to work. She's got a suitably well-honed ego, and clearly Harry does too, and they didn't want to be in the slipstream of William and Kate.
Why do you think it did really work, unless I'm terribly naive, with Diana and Fergie? Why was there none of this conjecture about those couples?
It was a different era, and I think Diana was... I mean, she was a society girl who wasn't a careerist. Meghan's a career girl. Yeah, she's a hustler.
I think that the very key difference is that Fergie was happy to play second fiddle. She was never really competing with Diana for the headlines, whereas Meghan married into the royal family as an established, successful woman who had, you know, it's very hard to then sort of go back to taking that back seat.
But we are still moving away from the fact that increasingly it seems it was never really about the tensions between Kate and Meghan, but more about the tensions between William and Harry. And we can't get away from that.
No, and we know how deep and inexplicably powerful, either repulsive or intensely attractive, those family bonds can be. They either work or they don't work, and often it's the love-hate thing, isn't it? Especially when they had such a close bond, almost you feel it was an all or nothing. Now, had Kate and Meghan, as those two men's enablers, had a closeness, that might have helped them find the love as opposed to the hate's a bit strong, but you know, the antagonism. But they clearly didn't. They come from very different worlds. You know, Kate's an establishment English girl. She's invested everything into the royal family.
And they had very little in common, that's true.
Very little in common, yeah. I mean, Meghan's much more your kind of out there liberal feminist. She achieved relative success in a very tough industry in America. That takes some doing.
Yeah.